Welcome to the fifth lecture of module 5 of mass transfer operation, and in this module we are discussing distillation mass transfer. So, before going to this lecture, let us have small recap on our previous lecture. In our previous lecture, we have mainly considered two important things. One is batch distillation. Under batch distillation, there are two variants as we have discussed. One is without reflux and another one is with reflux. So, we have considered in our previous lecture only this part, that is batch distillation without reflux, and which is also termed as differential distillation. And this batch distillation has huge applications as we have discussed, and we have solved how to calculate the different composition in case of batch distillation. And the second thing we have considered is steam distillation, and we have seen that steam distillation has major application in food industries and for the separation of heat sensitive materials. In this lecture, we will mainly consider the continuous multi-stage fractionation, its principle. And the second thing we will consider that different feed conditions, and based on the feed conditions, how these feed conditions changes flows of the vapor and liquid in the column internals. So, how this feed condition changes the vapor flows and liquid flows inside the column, that we will discuss, and finally, we will obtain the operating lines for rectifying and stripping section. So, mainly these three things we will systematically discuss in this lecture. So, this is a typical, as you have seen earlier, typical tray multi-stage distillation column. Fractional distillation or fractionation is normally used to separate liquid mixture into two or more vapor or liquid products with different compositions. So, this is a complete fractionation as shown over here. You can separate two or more components, and either it is you can get the product as a vapor form or you can get as a liquid forms. So, with different compositions as you want from the different tray locations. It is an equilibrium stage of operation, and in each stage a vapor phase is contacted with a liquid phase. So, you can see there are number of trays, and each trays the vapor and liquid come in intimate contact and they reach equilibrium, and then they move from one tray to the other. So, the less volatile, that is called heavy components, or the high boiling components, they concentrate in the liquid phase. So, the less volatile component will concentrate on the liquid phase or in the liquid phase, and the more volatile component which is called light component, they concentrate on the vapor phase. So, by using multiple stages in series with recycle and separation can be achieved. So, you can see multiple stages shown over here, and part of the product, suppose if you have a distillate taken out from the overhead product and part is returned over here. So, the degrees of separation you want to get, you can obtain from here, and as we said, the less volatile component will concentrate on the liquid phase. So, less volatile component will be richer in the bottom product, because the liquid will fall down and you can get a liquid product over here, and then vapor, the lighter components, more volatile components will move upward, and you will get the more volatile component as a distillate product at the top. The feed to a distillation column may be liquid, vapor or a liquid vapor mixture. So, any kind of feed you can use over here, either it is a liquid or it is a vapor or it may be a vapor liquid mixture. So, either of these three combination we can use as a feed to the column. It may enter at any point in the column, although the option optimal feed tray location should be determined and used. So, you can feed at any tray from the top to bottom as a feed entry, but which for the optimal operation. So, that you need to find out with a proper procedure what would be the feed tray location to get optimal output from this. So, that we will discuss in the later stage of our discussion, the remaining lectures. So, more than one stream may be fed to the system and more than one product may be drawn. So, instead of a single feed, you can have multiple feed tray into the column, and also the product, instead of taking product at a top, you can have different stage cut at different location. So, you can feed at multiple points, you can also withdraw product at multiple points throughout the tower. Traditionally, most columns have been built from a set of distinct trays or plates. Trays may be numbered from top down or bottom up. Either you write the plate numbers from or stage number, that is from the top you can write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on, or you can also number from bottom, which you can do other way around. So, either you can number from top or you can number from bottom. When analyzing a stage, flows and composition take the number of the trays they leave. The top tray of column tray 1 and numbers downwards, this is the general convention. So, you give a tray name number at top as 1 and then you go downwards 2, 3, 4, that is the usual convention, but you can use the reverse way as well. And as it said, when we analyze the stage, flows and compositions take the number of that tray they leave. Suppose if you consider this is nth tray, so the component which will leave from here, that is the vapor which will go off, that will be y n, and the liquid which will go down from this tray will be y x n of the more volatile component. So, the component composition takes this number, and similarly the into this tray like which will come, say if we numbered from top to bottom. So, this will be n plus 1th tray, and from here the vapor will go to the nth tray. So, the in to this tray would be y n plus 1, and the liquid will come from top of this tray, that is the n minus 1. So, the liquid which will into this nth tray would be composition of n x n minus 1. So, this way the flows and composition are numbered for a particular tray. The liquid streams flows down the column from one tray to the next tray, and then the vapor flows up bubbling through the liquid on the trays. Now, the vapor from top tray is condensed and the condensate is collected in a reflux drum. You can see the vapor which is coming at the top of the column, there is a condenser here and there is a reflux drum over here. So, where you condense the vapor with the condenser and then goes to the reflux drum. So, this is reflux drum. A part of this liquid is drawn as the top product. So, which is the product over here is distillate, and the other part is fed back to the top tray, that is top tray is marked as number 1. So, which is over here. So, enter at the top tray as a reflux. So, we call this returning the fed back to the column of top tray is named as reflux. The top products contains the more volatile component A and a little of the less volatile B. So, mostly the more volatile component will come with the vapor phase with a very little of the less volatile components. So, it will be richer in the more volatile component. The liquid from the bottom tray goes to a reboiler where it is partially vaporized. So, you can see that from the liquid at the bottom which is coming out, it goes to a reboiler where it is heated up and it is partially vaporized. So, it is used partial reboiler. So, partially vaporized, the vapor is fed back to the tower, the liquid part is continuously withdrawn as the bottom of the product. So, bottom product over here is taken as bottoms, and the vapor, partly of the vapor which is returned back to the column is known as the boil up. The bottom product is rich in the less volatile component B and has only a small amount of A in it. So, A is the more volatile component, obviously it will go with the distillate, and the bottoms will be rich in the less volatile components. Transport of more volatile component A occurs from the liquid to the vapor phase, while transport of the less volatile B occurs from the vapor to the liquid phase. So, throughout the column this phenomena from bottom to top takes place. The more volatile components leaves from the liquid phase to the vapor phase, and less volatile component moves from the vapor phase to the liquid phase. Thus, a distillation column involves counter diffusion of the components, not necessarily equimolar. So, distillation involves counter diffusion of the components, and it may not be equimolar counter diffusion, because the heavier components or the less volatile component transferred from the vapor phase to the liquid phase, and more volatile component transferred from the liquid phase to the vapor phase in the distillation process. That is why it is a counter diffusion of the components. As the vapor flows off, it becomes progressively richer in A. Similarly, the liquid becomes richer in less volatile B as it flows down the column. So, it is now clear that the vapor flows up, liquid flows down, and then the component of the more volatile and less volatile changes with the liquid composition, less volatile components, and in the vapor phase more volatile component. The product leaving the top of the column is called the overhead product, or it is called overhead, and also it can be called as top product, or it can be called as distillate or distillate product. So, any name can be adopted. Distillate product may be liquid or vapor or occasionally both. So, you can have liquid vapor mixture, or you can have only liquid, or you can have only vapor, depending on the type of condenser you use. So, if you use total condenser, that is all the vapors are condensed, so then you will get as a liquid, or if you use partial condenser, so it will be vapor liquid mixture. Most of the time the distillate flow rate is assigned the symbol D, and the composition is XD or YD, depending on the product you are taking out. The product leaving the bottom of the column is called the bottom products or bottoms, and given the symbol B with composition XB. In some situations, notably petroleum refining, one or more intermediate or side draw. So, side draw products may be removed from the column. So, in general for petroleum refinery, one or more intermediate or side draw, which is product is taken out from the side. So, that is called side draw. The portion of the column above the feed tray is called the rectification section, and in this section the vapor is enriched by contact with the reflux. So, in this case what happens, we have a feed tray, and above the feed tray we call that section is the rectifying section or enriching section. What happens in this case, the more volatile component, because in this section the reflux from the top of the tray it comes down and vapor goes up, and there is a contact between the reflux and the vapor which is travelling upwards. In this section the vapor is enriched by contact with the reflux. So, vapor phase will be richer in the more volatile component in this section. The portion of the column which is below the feed tray is called the stripping section. The liquid portions of the feed serves as the reflux of this section. In the bottom section is called feed, either some of the feed as well as the reflux which is coming out from the top, they serve as the liquid flow below the feed tray, and that is called the stripping section. The operating pressure of the column is typically controlled by adjusting heat removal in the condenser. So, depending on the pressure you want, you can just control pressure by operating the condenser heat removal over here. A normal column has a temperature gradient and a pressure gradient from bottom to top. So, inside the tower the liquid and vapors are always at their bubble points and dew points. So, the highest temperature is at the bottom and the lowest temperature is at the top. So, there is temperature gradient throughout the column, and bottom of the column will have the highest temperature and it gradually decrease, and the lowest temperature would be at the top of the tower. So, the entire device including both the sections, that is rectifying section and the stripping section, is called the fractionator. In normal operations there are 5 hurdles that can be adjusted to manipulate the behavior of a distillation column. So, we can change the behavior of the distillation column by adjusting 5 hurdles. What are them? The feed flow, we can change the feed flow. We can also do product flows. So, bottom products depending on our requirement we can take, and also the distillate which is we are taking out at the product at the top, that we can change or we can manipulate. The reflux flow, the reflux ratio we can change we can use variable reflux ratio by changing different reflux to the column, and we can also change the boil up flow or reboiler heat input. So, this flow also we can change. So, these are the 5 hurdles in a distillation column for normal operation. We can adjust them or manipulate them to see the behavior of the distillation column. Now, we will consider ideal stages. An ideal stage is one where the vapor and liquid leave the stage are in equilibrium. So, as we said earlier, for any tray there is a liquid level maintained and the vapor from the bottom goes through the perforation of the plates, and there are different plate designs we have already discussed. So, it flows through the liquid and there is a intimate mixing between the gas and liquid on that liquid pool, and after that it engages from the liquid and goes to the next stage. So, because of this the vapor and liquid which leaves a particular tray, they are in equilibrium. So, the leaving streams are in equilibrium, not the incoming stream to that tray. So, the leaving stream should be in equilibrium. Consequently, the vapor composition fractionally depends on the liquid composition. Ideality is an approximation, but stage efficiencies can be used to account for real cases. So, if we assume that equilibrium is reached and it is separation happens till the equilibrium is reached, so then we call it as ideal stage, but actually it may not reach the ideal equilibrium conditions in each stage, and there is a deviation from the equilibrium. So, in that case, to find out the real number of stage required for a particular separation, we use stage efficiencies. A key result of the ideal stage assumption is that the liquid streams leaving an ideal stage are assumed to be at their bubble point and vapor stream leave at their dew point. So, that is the important assumption for an ideal stage, that is the liquid stream leaving an ideal stage are assumed to be at their bubble point and the vapor which is leaves from the tray will be at their dew point if it is ideal tray. So, when no azeotrophs are present, both top and bottom products may be obtained in any desired purity if enough stages are provided and enough reflux is available. So, depending on the number of stages and depending on the reflux, any desired purity of the product we want we can achieve using distillation. In practice, there are limits to the number of stages and to the amount of reflux. So, not every separation can be accomplished. So, because of these limits, design limits of number of stages and the amount of reflux you can vary. So, based on that you may not be able to apply distillation process for every separation. Theoretical limits of performance are imposed by total reflux, that is minimum stages, and minimum reflux, that is infinite number of ideal stages. So, we will discuss this total reflux and minimum reflux later. That theoretical limit, it says whatever the vapor produced at the top of the column, if you condensed completely and completely returned as a reflux without taking out any product, in that case we will get the minimum number of stages required to do a particular separation. And if we give a very less reflux or very small reflux, that is the minimum reflux, then the number of stages required we can calculate theoretically, and we will see that infinite number of stages are required for a particular separation. So, depending on the reflux ratio we use or reflux we use, it gives theoretical limits of minimum stage and the maximum stage, that is the ideal stages. So, these we will discuss in the later part. Now, we will discuss about the condenser and reboiler. There are two main categories of condenser differentiated by the extent of condensation. As we said, one is total condenser. In the total condenser, all the vapor leaving the top of the column is condensed. So, the vapor which is coming out over here, if it is total condenser, all the vapors are condensed to the liquid phase. Consequently, the composition of the vapor leaving the top tray, suppose this is leaving and its composition is Y1, because this vapor is coming from tray number 1 say. So, Y1 is the same as that of the liquid distillate product and reflux XD. So, the distillate, because it is completely all the vapors are condensed. So, the reflux composition and the distillate composition would be same with respect to Y1. So, Y1 would be equal to XD. The another kind of condenser which is used is partial condenser. The vapor is only partially liquefied, the liquid produced is returned to the column as liquid and a vapor product stream is removed. So, you take a vapor liquid mixture, you just take the vapor and partially condense it. So, in the reflux drum you will have a vapor component and you have a liquid components, and then the vapor product stream is removed and the composition of the streams, that is V1, D and R are different. So, the vapor which is coming here, the composition over here, and then the distillate you are taking here, that is over here, and the reflux you are giving, they are of different composition. Normally, D having the composition of the distillate having composition of YD is in equilibrium with the R, that is composition XD. So, because they are in equilibrium, if you take a vapor product over here in the reflux drum, that also can be considered as one equilibrium stage, because vapor and liquid they exist in a drum. So, you are taking the vapor product as YD and the reflux you are giving as a liquid as vapor which has composition YD, and you have reflux which has composition XD. So, they are in equilibrium composition. So, a partial condenser functions as an equilibrium separation stage. So, column with a partial condenser effectively have an extra ideal stage. So, when you calculate the number of ideal stages, then if it is partial condenser, you have to calculate reflux drum as an extra equilibrium stage. Now, regarding reboilers, most reboilers are generally partial reboilers. They only vaporize part of the liquid in the column base. So, here, so part of the liquid is vaporized which is returned to the column and the liquid is taken as a bottom product. Partial reboilers also provide an ideal separation stage. So, in the reboiler also there is a intimate contact between the vapor phase and the liquid phase. So, this is also considered to be one equilibrium stage or ideal stage. Now, reboiler take different kinds of forms. One of them is the thermosiphon type that rely on the thermal effect on density to draw liquid through the heat exchanger. So, basically you need not to create or pump the liquid vaporized and to the column returning the column to the as a vapor. You need not to pump it because of heating effect or thermal effect, and so effect on the density of the liquid which will draw to the heat exchanger, it will automatically circulate if you use the thermosiphon type reboiler. Another is called the forced circulation type, that use a pump to force the liquid through. So, you use a pump over here and you take the liquid from the bottom of the column and force to the reboiler, heat it, and then the vapor will go to the boil off, vapor will go as boil off, and then you can get a bottom products. Another is called the step-in type, that come through the side of the column into the liquid reservoir. So, step-in type, that is in most of the refineries you will have similar kind of reboiler, step-in type. In large complex column, side stream reboilers can be also used. So, basically this you will get in petroleum refinery. This side stream reboiler are generally used, and there are large and complex columns in the refineries. These draw liquid off a tray, heat it, and then return the vapor liquid mixture to the same or a similar tray. So, it takes the liquid out from a particular tray and then it heat it off, and then it return to the same tray or in the similar tray. So, this is called side stream reboiler. Now, thermal condition of the feed determines the column internal flows. So, we will look into the feed conditions and how it changes the flows of the vapor and liquid in the column internals. So, this is very important to understand. As you can see over here, if the feed is below its bubble point, that means it is a cold feed which is shown over here. Heat is needed to raise it to where it can be vaporized. So, since it is a feed is below the bubble point, so this feed will need to heat up where the it will be vaporized, the more volatile component will come out. So, what will happen in this case? There is a liquid flow from the top of the column which is coming over here, and since this feed is cold feed, the vapor which is going off, some of part of the vapor it will condense, and along with the reflux liquid or the liquid which is coming down to the upper tray of the feed tray. So, the total column internal liquid flow below the feed tray will increase, and then the vapor flows towards the top of this column here will decrease, because part of the vapor is condensed to heat the cold feed. This heat must be obtained by condensing vapor rising through the column. So, the liquid flow moving down the column increases. So, this is a case of where you have a feed below its bubble point. So, how much it will increase? By the entire amount of liquid feed which is given over here, liquid feed plus the condensed material which is condensed from the vapor, and the vapor flow upward is decreased. Now, let us consider the second case. If the feed enters as superheated vapor, that is above its dew point. So, feed enters as superheated vapor and it will vaporize some of the liquid to equalize the enthalpy. So, which is shown over here, the superheated vapor. So, what will happen, because it is vapor and it is also at very high temperature. So, the liquid which is coming down will also be part of this, will also be vaporized, and it will add with the vapor flows which is coming from the downward tray. So, in this case the liquid flow down the columns drops. So, this will decrease and the vapor flows up towards the column will increase, and that will increase by the entire amount of the feed, because that is the superheated vapor whole amount of the feed plus the vaporized material which will come from the liquid vaporization. So, that will be the add up to the vapor flows which is already coming. If the feed is saturated liquid or vapor, no additional heat must be added or subtracted and the feed adds directly to the liquid or vapor flows. So, if you take superheated saturated vapor, so basically all the liquids, so you this vapor need not to heat the liquid which is coming down. So, it will just directly add with the vapor which is coming down. So, with the entire amount of the feed and liquid flows will not change towards the below the feed tray, whereas the vapor flows will increase by the amount of the feed flow. And similarly, if you take the saturated liquid, so in that case what will happen, your liquid does not need to heat it up and so the vapor flows as it is, it will flow and the vapor flows above the feed tray will not change. However, the liquid flow will increase by the amount of the feed flow. Now, there is another case, if you take the feed partially vaporized. So, it depends on the vapor and liquid composition. So, from the feed the amount of vapor which is present in the feed will add up with the vapor and the amount of liquid present in the feed will add up with the liquid. So, the feed will be distributed to vapor phase and the liquid phase and the flow rate will be accordingly enhanced. Now, we will discuss the number of trays by McCabe-Thiele method. There are some assumptions and we will just discuss the fundamentals of McCabe-Thiele method for determining the number of trays, that is the graphical method, and to do so we need to have a few assumptions. The first assumption is that the most important assumption which is underlying for the McCabe-Thiele method is the molar rate of overflow of the liquid from one tray to the another is constant over any section of the column. So, the first assumption and that is most important assumption is that the molar flow rate of the liquid in all sections of the column remains constant. So, with these assumptions, if we consider the feed entry at the top, the liquid from the top column is L naught and that should will change to L1, L2 up to Ln. So, all these flow rate in each tray they will be equal and so we can write as L by removing the subscript and we call it constant in the rectifying section. So, in the rectifying section the tray number may be numbered 1, 2, 3 up to Ln. So, this will be the liquid flows can be termed as L in the rectifying section. Similarly, stripping section, that is below the feed tray, we can name the tray number as Lm bar, which would be equal to Lm plus 1 bar and up to Ln, L capital N, and that should be equal to L bar. So, which is constant in the stripping section. The constant flow rate of the liquid or vapor in the two sections differ by the rate of input of liquid or vapor feed to the column at the feed tray. So, as we have discussed before, depending on the feed condition or the either it is vapor or liquid or it is a vapor liquid mixture, depending on the feed the constant flow rates of the liquid and vapor in the two sections will change. The second assumption for the McCabe-Thiele method is that the molar vapor rates in the respective sections are also remain invariant or constant, and this is assumption is popularly known as constant molar overflow CMO. The assumption is obviously true when the molar heat of vaporization of the mixture does not depend upon the temperature in the column. So, this assumption, that is constant molar overflow for the vapor, will be true when the molar heat of vaporization of the mixture does not depend upon the composition or the temperature in the column. For example, a mixture of hydrocarbons not differing much in the molecular weight. So, in that case these assumptions may be true. For many liquid mixtures, the assumptions is also a good approximation. If constant molar overflow occurs, the mass exchange between the phases occur in the equimolar counter diffusion mode. So, please note that if constant molar overflow occurs, the mass exchange between the phases occur in the equimolar counter diffusion mode. So, that is based on this equimolar counter constant molar overflow. So, if this assumption is valid, then the mass exchange between the vapor phase and the liquid phase should be based on the equimolar counter diffusion. The third assumption over here is heat loss from the column is negligible. So, this is also another important assumption for McCabe-Thiele method, there is heat loss from the column. So, it is to be noted that if there is heat loss or gain, there will be accompanying condensation or vaporization within the column and the flow rates will vary along the column as a result. So, this assumption is also very important. If there is heat loss and gain, there will be condensation or vaporization inside the column. So, which will change the column internal flows. Major steps of the graphical construction in the McCabe-Thiele method are as follows. The first is draw the equilibrium curve using the available equilibrium data. Okay. Either equilibrium data or some correlations would be available to draw the equilibrium curve. The second thing is draw the operating lines for both the sections. One is rectifying section, another is stripping section. Then draw steps between the equilibrium curve and the operating lines to find out the number of ideal trays. So, this graphical methods of finding out the number of trays or number of ideal trays required we will discuss later, but we will go systematically to find out the operating line equation and operating line for the stripping section and the rectifying sections. We will discuss on that part first. Now, operating line equations. For a binary system, we can make a plot of the stage vapor composition versus stage liquid composition, that is yn versus xn. If the points for all the stages are joined, the plots represents the operating path of the systems. If the liquid and vapor rate are constant through a section of the column, the operating curve will be a straight line. In the following analysis, we will assume our column has a single feed, no side draw products, but the equations can be easily adjusted should this change. So, no side draw product, single feed. When we have a multiple feed or we have a side draw products, these equations can be easily adjusted to that conditions that we will discuss in the later part of our lectures. Now, we will consider the rectifying section to find out the operating lines and consider total condenser. So, the reflux at the bubble points. Consider a section of the fractionator entirely above the point of introduction of feed. So, this is above the introduction of the feed, which is shown over here, and the condenser removes all the latent heat, but does not cool the resulting liquid further. So, it is at their bubble points. Therefore, the reflux and distillate products are liquids at their bubble points. Let L be the downward flow of the liquid from each tray and G is the rising vapor from each tray in mole per hour. Now, a total material balance over the envelope we can write is G would be equal to L plus D, and let us define the reflux ratio, which is R is equal to L by D. So, we can write G would be from here, if we just substitute L from here, L is equal to R D. So, if we substitute in this total material balance envelope, so reflux which we have defined R is equal to L by D, that is the amount which is returned is and the distillate which is taken out, L by D. So, G would be equal to R D plus D, which is equal to D into R plus 1, and from that we can get G by D would be equal to R plus 1. Equation that represents the material balance of component A over an envelope shown over here. So, that is G y n plus 1 over here, because all the flow rate, the gas and liquid flow rate, they are taken as constant. So, it is subscript are taken off. So, G into y n plus 1 would be equal to L x n plus d x d. So, this is the material balance for component A. Now, from this, if we rearrange, if we substitute, divide G for both the left and right hand side of this equation, we would obtain y n plus 1 would be equal to L by G x n plus d by G x d. Now, if we substitute here, this will be L by D divided by G by D into x n plus x d divided by G by D. So, from here we can write, since G by D is R plus 1 and R is equal to L by D, we can write y n plus 1 would be equal to R by R plus 1 x n plus x d by R plus 1. So, this equation of this is the equation of the straight line on the xy plane with a slope r by r plus 1 and an intercept is x d by r plus 1 on the y axis. Also, the equation is satisfied with x n would be equal to x d and y n plus 1 would be equal to x d. So, these 2 points must be satisfied with this equation of straight line. So, this is the operating line equation in the rectifying section. So, the straight line passes through the point x d which is a point, say D over here, and with the point x d and on the diagonal over here we have the intercept x d by plus 1. So, we will have the operating line equation for the rectifying section. It is called an operating line because it relates the concentration of the liquid and the vapor phases leaving or entering a section. So, that is why it is called operating line.